when I became a lender on a couple of my properties, that was probably the easiest money I've ever made.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't even have to think about it, right? It was like seamless and it was no headache. And it was one of the things where I was like, okay, this is really not tapped into. We should really kind of lean into this a little bit more and explore this option
Yeah.
because we're having people that are falling short because of layoffs and things of that nature. So how do we compensate for that? How do we make up for that and still invest and still get the benefits of it,
Mhm.
but not have the headache of it?
Everybody, we are back for another episode of the iReach podcast, and we got a special guest today. We're looking at the real estate side of things now. We've got Miss Chase Hunter on. Chase, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul.
Yes, yes, yes. So super excited to get into this conversation because I think you have an amazing story, but also an amazing perspective with bringing and shedding light onto the real estate side of things and investing or what have you. So talk to me a little bit kind of about how you got into real estate and where do you do right your real estate investing, what communities are you engaged in, all of that, right, as we get into your
Amazing
story.
question. Amazing question. So my journey started really simple for me. It was a conversation that I was just having with a friend one day. I literally had no knowledge about real estate except for real estate agents seem to be running around all the time, and I didn't want any parts of that.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a conversation I was having with a friend, and she was like, I think I want to invest in some property somewhere and just collect rent. And I was like, wait, will you tell me more?
You're right.
And she was from Baltimore. And so she was like, yeah, there are these cheap properties and all that. And so I started looking in Baltimore. It was like, it doesn't really fit what I'm trying to do. At the time, I was living in Houston, Texas, and I tried to fit that model into because I had a tight budget. I was like, I need to do something,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that seemed like a great idea. So let me go ahead and start in my own backyard. Couldn't make it work, so I started the search for cheap properties,
Hmm.
and I went literally, when I say went all over the world, I traveled and went on different real estate tours to Dominican Republic, to
Wow.
Bali, to all these places, Ghana, to try to find these places that would fit into the model. And it literally kept coming back to Detroit. So it's
Mm.
like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do it. I bought two properties sight unseen from the Detroit Land Bank.
Woo.
And I was like, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, what's the worst that could happen? I fail and then I learn something, right?
Yeah.
So I did it and I was coming back and forth. I did some rehabs on the properties. My first two properties, I ended up doing full rehabs on them.
Nice.
And in that meantime, I was like, okay, I need to stabilize this because I still need money coming in. I was bootstrapping the whole thing. I was like, I still need to stabilize. So my realtor at the time was like, hey, I have these other investors that are trying to offload some properties. Do you want to take a look? And I was like, yeah.
Mm.
And after that, it was like two and then three, and then ended up with seven properties. So it was an amazing, amazing journey. And so that's kind of how I fell into real estate.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. And yeah, you did. You literally traveled the world and then came back to Detroit,
I
which
did.
is pretty cool. So you mentioned, and I want to make sure that depending on who's listening in, right, and knowing that we're typically talking through a lot of the construction careers or what have you. This is probably our first episode, like really leaning all the way into just real estate and looking at investing from that perspective. So you mentioned a land bank, right?
Mhm.
For those who don't know, what is a land bank?
So a land bank is where the city owns a lot of properties that were either foreclosed on or taken back by taxes or some type of way by the city from owners that couldn't make the payments. And
Hmm.
so the city has gained these private properties, put them on a website, and was selling them as low as $1,000. So even though you had to put some work in them, you could purchase these properties and have like a real property with a clear title and deed and everything for $1,000.
Yeah. Nice, nice. Okay, so I want to make sure we got a chance to shore that up. Just in case anybody was like, man, she said land bank. Now I know the bank that I go to, they never
Right.
classify themselves as a land bank.
Exactly.
Right. Is that where I go and cash my check at? Yeah.
Not
Nice.
that bank.
Right, right, exactly. So you're going through this process for the first time.
Mhm.
Before you became a real estate investor, you were not in real estate, right? And so you're making this transition into a new sector. This is now on the entrepreneur side. Were you an entrepreneur prior to coming into real estate?
Kind of, sort of. I've
Okay.
always been an employee-neur.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was always in
I love.
corporate and I always had a business or something on the
Yeah,
side,
yeah.
always. So
Nice,
kind
nice.
of, yeah.
Yeah, so you've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Hmm.
And I do. I think that that's important, especially for our community, right? As well. One of the things that I try to be an advocate about as we are doing this work within the industry of construction and showcasing so many different career pathways that exist, one of those routes that we like to introduce and speak to as well is the business ownership side of the industry. And when you're looking at, our community, a lot of times we don't get a chance to speak or create environments that cultivate becoming an entrepreneur and understanding like what that takes and what it entails. And
Hmm.
in addition to that, maybe some of the benefits of being able to own your own, right? And so when when you are looking at kind of going back to the beginning of your journey and even before, right, getting this encounter and talking through the opportunities for investing, as you had this entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, what were some of the things that you were able to apply, or what helped you to make that transition over to the real estate side that maybe some person is not able to tap into, or somebody hasn't reflected back to them, right? Like, hey, you've got some key components that will probably serve you well if you decided to go this route too.
Hmm. Great question. So it started for me in corporate because I've been in corporate my entire life. And I always looked at not the employees, but the back end, the
Mm,
systems and the processes that went into place to run the business.
yep,
Because without those, I'm the type of person, if something is missing, 9 times out of 10 is because there's a system or a process that's not in place to make it run
yep,
how it should. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs, we kind of miss that because we're looking from the employee standpoint instead of jumping from the employer standpoint and the operations and the business side. Like, how are they effectively making this thing run? So, everything that I pretty much learned in corporate, I was able to transfer over because I really honed in to the backside of the systems and the processes.
yeah. No, that's good. I mean, being a systems thinker, right? Like, how are things integrated? How do they relate?
Hmm.
I once heard this before, and it made me think about this when you just said it, but um, it was some leadership kind of course that I was in, or program that I was in, or what have you. But we were talking about systems thinking, and they said you can tell when there is not a system, when there's any part of an organization that is disjointed from the rest, right?
Hmm.
Because systems talk, systems are connected, right? And systems play off of one another. And so when you have something else that's taking place that is completely disconnected from everything else that's taking place, that is not a system. And so you're able to recognize the deficiencies, the areas of opportunity, and then you're also able to identify why you cannot properly assess what is taking place, because what you don't track or what's not connected to the totality, you can't effectively measure, right? And so it just made me think about that, as you were talking about systems. And I think that that is very important, is for us to think more deeply and more intentional in asking the questions of how and why.
Exactly. You
How does
have to know the why.
Yeah, yep, how and why. So as you're operating in real estate now, as you're now an investor, are you looking at kind of is it just on the residential side? I know there's a lot of construction that is taking place where you're starting to see the mixed use developments where it's a combination of commercial and residential. Talk to me a little bit about kind of how you started right on the residential side, and if it's still residential, or are you starting to look at other opportunities and kind of have more of a mixed portfolio?
Great question. So my my journey started very, very different. Everything that I needed as an investor, I added.
Mm,
Um, and created an entire turnkey investment firm. So I know I was like, okay, I'm giving my money away to my realtor when I can save a lot of that. So I went and got my license. I'm all about sometimes cutting out the middleman,
yep, yeah.
cutting out the middleman. So um, after documenting my journey and putting my journey on YouTube, and then because I wanted to see the systems and the processes that I was putting in place in order to grow and scale. And
Yeah.
so I started off with single family. And then by that time, I started working with other clients. So my clients, I work for clients with all over the country,
Yeah.
and they come in and invest in Detroit. And so I help them with do the same thing. So most of them come in hot. They're like, okay, I want to have a certain number of single family, then we're going to upgrade to multifamily, then we're going to go into commercial, right? And we're going to go into the bigger projects. And so all of us are pretty much going in stages. So we pretty much started off with 4 years ago with single family, and
Mhm.
then we moved up to the multifamily, and now we are actually in development and getting into the larger projects with the commercial and the mixed use and the bigger and the larger multifamilies.
Mm. Nice, nice, nice. And is that Investors Edge Network?
It is.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Nice,
It
nice.
is.
Yeah, no, that's very good. And so was that the genesis of kind of you starting that, is to look at, hey, how can I begin to bring in-house a lot of the things that, I'm paying for kind of externally?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that because I started seeing the pain point and filling the gap. So one of the things that myself as an investor before even became a realtor, that one of the issues that I was having is, okay, I'm traveling back and forth. I'm sitting in my car waiting, and having meetings at Starbucks with contractors and meeting up on site, but I really need to have a space for them to, have a plan and lay out the plan so we can all be on the same page and have a meeting with everyone. And so everything that I needed, I brought in-house and I kind of created. So there's was the construction team and the cleanup and the make ready and the everything in between, even from my lenders, my lender partners, my insurance partners. Everything is like we are a resource. That's why it's Investors Edge Network, because there's a network of everything that you need. You can find and make one phone call within the network, and someone is there to service the client.
Nice. No, that's good. to be able to come in, from this one conversation, develop a plan, and you come in as a single investor, but then to take inventory of everything that goes into being an investor and then creating this entire network around that. Very, very, very good. And so no, that's good. A lot has changed, right? From the time that you
Drastically.
started investing
Hmm.
to now, right? There's a lot of
Oh
things
gosh.
that have shifted in the economy. People's spending habits are different. People are rethinking, investing as well.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of conversation and chatter that's out here about, is now the right time to invest? Should you or should you not? Right? So talk to us a little bit. I'm pretty sure you have some insight and thoughts around this, considering kind of where we are within the state of our economy. Is now still a good time to invest?
It definitely is a great time to invest.
And why
Um,
is that?
because there's always going to be a need for housing, no matter what. There's always going to be a housing crisis that needs to be filled. In which way that we show up to fulfill that need looks differently for every investor. So, when people are like trying to get into this industry, and do a one and done type of thing, I'm like, okay, you're not going to get rich off of one property.
Yeah.
You have to, when we are having conversations now, the conversations look a little like, what does your 5-year exit strategy look like? We are going in planning. What does that look like? Are we upgrading? Are we selling our portfolio, what we have, to upgrade into something bigger? And when we're going into, most of them are coming in, hey, I want to create affordable housing. Okay, what does that look like for you? I mean, are we doing shared housing now? Because that is now an option. That's a huge option now that more people are kind of leaning into, more of our investors are leaning into and being open to because of their affordability.
So
Yeah.
when you say shared housing, right?
Mhm.
What do you mean by shared housing?
So that is multiple people living under one roof and they are renting a room versus the entire property
Mm,
because it's more affordable.
gotcha, gotcha. Okay, just want to make sure we got a chance to do that, just like we did the land bank. So what is shared housing? That's the new way. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, more people, when you think about it, there are more people that are like, you know what? I'll pay $1,000 a run to have all utilities paid and to make sure that I have, because it's not cutting into my expenses anymore. Then I can save a little bit more or I can
Yeah.
do a little bit more. So if I can go in with someone and cut the cost down, why not do that and not have to worry about any of this thing because of the state of the economy?
Mhm.
So it works well for a lot of people, and I'm starting to see the trend more and more rise because rent prices are steadily increasing.
Yeah.
Where there's a very low median income here in Michigan, especially in Detroit. So
Mm.
affordable housing is far and few in between. So we have to lean in and create those opportunities for our not just our investors, but our tenants as well, so that they can, you know, thrive as well.
That's good. I'm glad you got a chance to kind of expound on that a little bit. I don't want to stop you from talking through kind of why is a good time to invest in and how you're having the intentional conversations with some of your investors and asking them about their exit strategy, and their 5-year plan. And are they looking to kind of sell off a particular portfolio and then go larger? And what does affordable housing mean? Because I think that's something that's worth unpacking as investors are considering that, because I think from kind of a moderate investor's perspective, right? When you
Mhm.
say affordable housing, you automatically just assume a rent price that doesn't necessarily price out a certain demographic. and how do you create that opportunity? But the shared housing aspect and some of the more kind of modern approaches to make housing more affordable is something that I don't think the average investor or maybe the new investor is thinking about when they say affordable housing. So no, thanks for unpacking that. So with inflation and everything that is going on, right? That this is still the proper time to invest. Correct.
Absolutely.
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 So
Because there's
you're
so
going to
many
be
more opportunities. And one thing that we are introducing and that we are bringing into our our fold now is telling our investors like, hey, I know you may be leery about being a landlord because of the state of the economy, right? And you're scared of, oh my God, I don't want to have to, you know, take care of toilets and issues and maintenance issues and all of these things and
yes.
evictions and all of those things. So we are kind of doing a slight pivot, if you will, into becoming a lender.
Mm,
So for those that are, because there are a lot of um, people out here, especially tenants that are, they don't know, you don't know what you don't know. They don't know that they could actually buy. They don't know that they could actually pay less in on a mortgage than they do in rent, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we are pivoting to now become the lender and get those properties for them and then sell them the property so that they can have 12 months to get back on their feet and refinance into another loan, a traditional loan. But
Mm,
now we are pivoting because of the economy and because we're like, okay, we see the shift coming. So being ahead of that curve and being ahead of that so that we are not so heavily focused on always becoming, you know, a landlord or something like that, and have those woes of a landlord. Like, okay, let's switch over and become a lender, and
yeah.
let's do that so that we can expand our portfolios faster and do more developments.
Wow. Okay. So two questions from that approach.
Mhm.
So is that are you seeing that be a more because we talk about pros and cons, right? And so yeah, I don't want to become that landlord. I don't want to handle collecting rents. I don't want to handle the maintenance. So are you seeing becoming a lender being a preferred option more than maybe just hiring a property manager?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. And so I see it from both ends because I've also done it myself. And I started with myself. So anything that I've introduced into the business and introduced to
You've
my
lived that out.
investors is because I've already done it myself and
Yes.
I've given it some time and I can tell them how to
Yeah.
lay it out and how to
Yeah.
lay it out perfectly. And so when I became a lender on a couple of my properties, that was probably the easiest money I've ever made.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't even have to think about it, right? It was like seamless and it was no headache. And it was one of the things where I was like, okay, this is really not tapped into. We should really kind of lean into this a little bit more and explore this option
Yeah.
because we're having people that are falling short because of layoffs and things of that nature. So how do we compensate for that? How do we make up for that and still invest and still get the benefits of it,
Mhm.
but not have the headache of it? So yes, absolutely. Even with the property management, you still have hiring a property manager, you still have the headaches
Yeah.
because you're still going to get the phone calls in a
Yeah.
sense, right? But when you become the lender, you do not at all. It's 100% their responsibility.
Yeah, yeah. And then the second question was, so when you do want to become the lender, and you mentioned that it's pretty seamless, how long of a process is that?
Oh, great. So you can dictate those terms.
Mm, okay.
And that is one thing that I love about the process. Typically, we don't go over 60 months
Mm,
because 5 years is pretty much it's enough time to for you to get everything together,
yeah.
right? It's enough time for you. And typically they don't between the 24-36 month mark, they're refinancing out, you're getting your balloon payment and you're done with the deal and on to the next. So it really works out.
Yeah, yeah. And so is that any different than, because I'm being educated in this process as well, right? So is that any different than the lease to buy or lease to own? Is it lease to own?
It is a little different,
Okay.
only because you get to set your terms,
Mm,
meaning you get to set the payment, you get to set the interest rate, you get to set, set the length of time, the
yeah.
balloon payment, the entire thing. And yes, it's negotiable, but most people, when they're like, this is a good deal, and I'm not going to get this at a bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me go ahead and go with this.
Yeah.
So it works. Yes, it's more
That
favorable
is.
than a lease to own.
Yeah, and you know what comes to mind is because I think the greatest capital is human capital, right? Like just being
Mhm.
able to know the right people and have the right relationships, right? And good relationships. Because
Absolutely.
right, I want to make sure I put that out there too. But I think one of the things that we don't get a chance to benefit from in our community is having the relationships with people who are in those type of positions, right? The
Mhm.
the owner's side of things or the financial side of things, and so being able to come into the industry or the sector of real estate, move to the lender side of things, and then become, essentially the financer, if you will, for a demographic that typically would not have that type of access and relational capital, human capital, outside of a bank, um,
Mhm.
I think is, I mean, that's transformative.
I think so too. I definitely think so. And after really seeing the impact of it,
Yeah.
and being able to give people an opportunity that would probably never have the opportunity, and go and being turned down by a bank
Yeah.
so many times, it's rewarding to see that impact that you have on your community by helping other people become homeowners.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. No, I'm glad that you got a chance to kind of unpack that and share that, Chase, because I don't think it's happening enough, and of course, through the work that you're doing, I'm sure that it is. It's changing lives, and hopefully, it begins to happen more. You know, because it's needed. And so you mentioned kind of going back to this time now, to invest, and when you're considering inflation, when you're considering interest rates and everything that is going on. One of the things that you mentioned was just the housing shortage. Now, last time I heard, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because this is kind of your area of expertise. But what I did hear is that like we're somewhere close to 4 million homes short. Is that the ballpark?
That is very accurate. Yes. Yes. It
Yeah.
is it's a deficit for sure. And it's like there's not enough developments happening to keep up because sometimes they just keep changing and moving the goalposts,
Mm,
especially in our community. So we have to really tap into those communities that are prepared to serve us and help us develop and give back to the community with the affordable housing. But it's a collective group effort for sure.
yeah, yeah. Wow. So yeah, that is pretty accurate. I mean, just with a lot of the work that we get a chance to do, and of course we're traveling to various cities. Like I mentioned, we've been up in the Michigan area before, in Detroit, and just seeing the amount of residential work that's taking place. And we're seeing a lot of mixed use developments as well, where of course, there's commercial, but because of the housing need, they are combining that commercial with residential, right? Just because
Mhm.
of the huge need. And but what I don't see a lot is, and of course, I don't get a chance to see everything, but what meets the eye, is a lot of the kind of the townhomes, if you will, the condos, and not necessarily the standalone single family homes. Are you seeing a lot of single family homes, or are you seeing a kind of what's the ratio, if kind of between how many of the condos kind of that we're seeing going up as a supplement for the housing shortage and the need versus like single family homes? Do you see it more
There's
than the
definitely
other, or?
I do. When it comes to the single family homes, hands down, it's going to be the most affordable.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to be priced out when it comes to the condos,
Mm,
and because those are typically downtown,
yeah.
they're for another demographic. They're not, they're not in our communities at
Hmm.
all. So we're taking what we have, either the properties that's already standing that can be rehabbed and renovated. We're taking those or just taking them down and, doing a demo and rebuilding from there. But it's pretty much single families for
Yep.
sure.
Yep. 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 Okay. No, that's good. And just being able to kind of understand, right? Like, and can make that connection between what's being built versus what the need is,
Hmm.
and who has the need, right? So two couple of questions, because I know this time is going by, but I want to make sure I get these last three questions in. Um, First and foremost, right? You're in Detroit. What are some common misconceptions about investing in Detroit, and how do you address that?
Ooh, um, I think there are quite a few. So one is well, it's true and untrue at the same time. The good help is hard to find, in
Yeah.
relation to contractors. And I just think there's a lack of talent because due to training.
Mm,
And I think if there was more education and more of a training program for them to go through
yep.
to kind of bridge that gap, then you would get rid of so many of your handyman and construction men per se. I just think they don't understand the business side of it. That's why they really, there's a lack there.
Yep.
Um, but another thing is, Detroit, people say, "Oh, I don't really see it coming back. I don't really see totally. It depends on where you are.
When
Like,
I was there, it was a lot of development taking place.
exactly. It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's like I ask all the time, okay, so where were you and where are you going?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of areas that are definitely coming back. And just for me, even being in the city when I started investing 5 years ago, and I'm looking now like, man, that did not look like that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Even the blocks that I have bought and started building on, it's like, wow, this is total transformation, totally
Yeah.
transformed. So those would be a couple of things I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Okay. Next question. Okay.
Mhm.
How do you balance, right? Because I think this is important for others who are coming from our community that are getting to a particular level. I think it's important for us to talk through how do we balance like profitability with community impact and investment strategies, because I think there's a
Great.
way to do both.
There is. For me, I have to stick to what I am passionate about and
Mm,
what I know. Because what I know, that's where I can grow.
yep.
And I am most impactful in those spaces where I kind of hone in on one segment at a time and then I grow it and then I move on. Before some people, when you just jump in all over the place and you're not grounded in one area, you don't give it time to take root and really
Mm,
kind of grow and see if that's an area that you want to profit in. Because sometimes you're just thinking, oh, that's a quick dollar. Let me go ahead and do it. But you
yep.
may end up hating it and then there's no impact at all. You
Yes.
can't. So if you take the time to kind of just hone in on, for me, it's like, what brings me joy?
Hmm.
What part of this work and do I really enjoy and love and that I would do every day for free? Then that's where I kind of, focus in at and kind of hone in on and work at.
Yeah, no, that is a very good answer. And just being able to connect, right? That vocation with purpose. What do you have a passion for?
Hmm.
And I like the fact that you mentioned sticking with something long enough and being rooted and grounded, because then you're able to see that investment through, right? And it's able to help others in the process. Last question. What would you say to any other kind of young person that may be thinking about just being an entrepreneur and thinking about just being in business ownership, right? That may not be thinking about real estate, but they're like, you know what? I don't know what I want to do for myself, but I know I want to be in business for myself.
Great question. I would advise you to get a mentor and shadow people. So if you get a mentor, because you're going to need that guidance.
Yep.
And until you start shadowing the person that's already doing what you want to do or what you think you want to do, you'll have no clue. Because perception is one thing, right? You may see someone doing something, oh, well, I would that, yeah, that's great, right? I've had plenty of people shadow me because they're like, oh, you make that look easy. And then they're like, oh wow, you do a lot of work. I don't think I want to do all of that. Right? That changes the game. So when
Yep.
you shadow and get a mentor and really take the time with the mentor, ask questions, like dive deep, for the good, the bad, and the indifferent, because you need to know all of that before you really fully commit to something.
No, that is very good. No, thank you for dropping by today, Chase. I
Of
appreciate the
course,
time.
thank you.
You are doing amazing things. I'm sure that you're going to continue to do more and have lasting impact. And so, no, thank you for just coming on, talking through your journey, the real estate side of things, and yeah, much success to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Thank you.